not. Hi. Hope everyone's having a good weekend. And one thing that I really have started implementing myself for my own personal healing journey is the idea that digestion works north to south. And if you're going to heal, there's something going on in your digestion, you have to fix it north to south. And what's interesting about that is there's often a lot of focus on gut health. But gut health is kind of at the end of all that. And I think people don't realize that oftentimes the problems that you're having are happening north of your gut. Whether it's stress related, or you're not chewing your food enough, or stomach acid. I've actually been taking hydrochloric acid and pepsin and absorbic acid with every meal after reading that book, which I've talked about a million times, Why Stomach Acid is Good for You. And I will tell you, I've been able to reintroduce ghee successfully. I've eaten a lot of ghee in the last 3 days and no skin rash. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, last year, December last year, I did my first AIP keto reset, and I eliminated grass-fed butter and ghee, which were a big part of my diet. And I had some psoriasis on my hairline, and I would get like a red rash right here, like flaky, and I just didn't know what it was. I just, but when I eliminated ghee and butter from my diet, it went away. And that was one of the big things I learned. And I've tried to reintroduce ghee and butter several times in the last year, and always within hours, I end up with a red patch on my face or some And now I was able to, I've eaten a lot of ghee. I use like a whole jar cooking for Thanksgiving and no red patch. And what that shows me is I really think maybe a big part of that is because I'm taking the hydrochloric acid with the pepsin and, helping that out. Because what's interesting when your stomach acid is low, which apparently most people have low stomach acid, it's like way more of a problem than too much stomach acid, unlike the antacid industry wants you to believe. But, you can't properly digest food, and that can also then lead to a lot of other issues down the digestive system, including leaky gut. Right now I'm using 4th and Heart ghee, and it's really good. I also think that while making homemade ghee is very easy, and I used to make it all the time, one of the reasons I like the store-bought ghee is because I think the filtering process is solid. Like a lot of these ghee companies test to make sure they're lactose and casein free. And I appreciate that because if I make it at home, maybe I'm not that diligent about straining my ghee. I don't know, But yeah, I'm using 4th and Heart, which, by the way, Wegmans, Safeway, I think Walmart has them. You can find 4th and Heart anywhere. Can we talk about the amazing products that are now, actually, I was at Stacy Toad's house on Friday, and good morning, Jimmy. And isn't it crazy? And I don't know if you guys, are you guys shopping at Walmart, Safeway, Wegmans? Regular grocery stores are now carrying RX bars, Epic bars. You can find avocado oil, California Olive Ranch, fat. It's incredible. The companies, Simple Mills, the companies that were starting off the ground when paleo was just starting, or when keto was just starting, and now these real food brands are in all the stores, not just Whole Foods. And I love that because it makes it accessible to everybody, which is amazing. And I think the healthy fats is the cornerstone. Of course, if you're eating, whether you're keto or not, healthy fats is essential, essential fatty acids, there's a deficiency in our society because of the garbage that they sold us for so many years, right? The low fat. And so many people have this fatty acid deficiency, which is also why chronic inflammation is such a problem, because you need essential fatty acids to manage inflammation in your body. And so now, instead of the canola oil and the soybean oil and the peanut oil and all these garbage oils that are super inflammatory, now there's a coconut oil, olive oil, grass-fed butter. It's super exciting. And absolutely the power of demand. I think it's just really incredible. So, you know, you really do pay with your dollars, and, you know, stores want to stay in business. And so, yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's really awesome. And I think that it also goes to show, the magic pill is amazing. I love that documentary. It is fantastic. I cried like a baby. If you have not watched The Magic Pill, it's essentially about going back to an ancestral template, and the benefits of keto for, you know, so many like health issues. They kind of follow different people with different issues, like a little girl with autism, a woman with Alzheimer's. They talk to the Aborigines. You cry like a baby. Just leave it at that. So I agree that there's a lot of, with the good, there's also the bad. You know, keto's making a lot of people a lot of money right now. I'm not talking about like packaged like food. I'm talking about like real food that's becoming more accessible in all types of stores, like good fats and grass-fed or organic ground beef that you can buy at Walmart now. Like, those are the things I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like keto cookies or keto crackers or keto cereal, because I agree, a lot of these processed foods, they're trying to bank off the, you know, the explosion of this, but they don't have the customer's best interest at heart. They just want to make money. You definitely have to read ingredients. A lot of these products have weird sweeteners like the maltitol, and they add, like I've always talked about this, like a lot. So if people are claiming like net carbs, so what happens with a lot of these products is that they'll make the product, and the product as is has, you know, 30 grams of carbs per serving, but then they add in fiber, like something with fiber, like a tapioca starch or a sassia, whatever fiber, or, you know, psyllium husk or something, and they add the fiber, and they're like, oh, if we added 20 grams of fiber to the 30 grams of carbs, now it's only 10 net carbs. But that's not how it works, because it's not like if you eat a pizza and then you eat like a bunch of fiber, it doesn't negate the carbs in the pizza. So, you know, obviously foods like vegetables that have the fiber content is in the vegetable, that's when counting net carbs, like an avocado, things like that. That's when it, like, you know, or if you're actually eating like flaxseed, you know, or something that is like really high in fiber. But when a lot of these products, they're adding this fiber to reduce the net carb count, but it's still going to impact your blood sugar. So yes, I agree. You have to be really careful. Yeah, avocado oil is really, so what's super interesting, I use avocado oil all the time. Yeah, I count total carbs too, which is why in my book I also recommend people to count total carbs, because once you get into the net carb thing, it becomes a slippery slope. And I get it, like a lot of things it makes it easier. You get to like eat more of the cookie or the bread that, you know, you want. But it just really, when you count total carbs, it creates an environment where you're going to make real food choices more often than not. Because when you're doing just vegetables and proteins and fats, you know, you don't really have like, you know, you don't have to do any math. It's not going to kick you out of ketosis. But if you're going to do like, and I get it, I eat the keto bread and the keto brownie and the keto cookies. I eat those occasionally. But if they're part of your everyday keto and you're like going off net carbs, I don't know, I feel like you're going to be lacking in nutrition and micronutrients, and you're also probably going to be not optimizing your keto diet, because, you know, yeah, those are just not everyday foods. Like, it's not about replacing the standard American diet with keto-fied or paleo-fied counterparts. It's about relearning how to eat and eating in a way that our ancestors did. I think essentially is like at the basis of where, you know, true health lies. That's the magic pill, which is what the documentary is also about, which I love. It's on Netflix if you guys have not seen it. But yeah, it's really exciting. It's an exciting time right now. I'm super stoked about, oh, sorry, it's total segue. I have like ADD. Olive oil. I got to hang out with Dr. Sarah Bayantine, Paleo Mom, who she's so intelligent, and like the mother of the autoimmune protocol. And her work has been really important in my life, because, you know, the autoimmune protocol is a big part of my life. But we were discussing olive oil and how I was under the impression that because it's a monounsaturated fat, and those are like, so there's saturated fats, which are really heat stable. There's monounsaturated fats, which are like, heat stable, like not super. And then there's polyunsaturated fats, which are like the ketos. Those are not heat stable. You should always eat those raw, not warm, not cook with them. And so, because they oxidize, and once the fat oxidizes as free radicals, and they can be inflammatory, right? But apparently, she was telling me that olive oil, which is an omega-9, it's not an omega-3 or a 6, is because the polyunsaturated fats are usually omega-6, a lot of them, which are great, but you need them, but they're also inflammatory, so you don't need too much. But apparently the new studies are debunking the myth that you shouldn't cook with olive oil, that you should in fact cook with olive oil, that it is a lot more heat stable than they had previously thought, and it's really good for you, and that our microbiome really likes olive oil. So super cool. I'm going to do a little more research on it. I know she has a podcast, The Paleo Parents, and they talked about it, but I'm super stoked about that because I have been using avocado oil, which is fine too, but olive oil apparently has a lot of benefits. It has the polyol, whatever. Like it has more nutrient properties and stuff. So super stoked. Obviously, if you like look into the Mediterranean diet and a lot of these really healthy cultures, they've been using olive oil forever. But yeah, that's exciting. I'm definitely gonna read more into that so I can put it in my second book, because I'm very passionate about fatty acids and how different fats, they work differently in our body, like, and how they're cooked, and omega, like it has such a direct impact to the inflammation in our body, the kinds of fat that we eat. So anyway, on that vein, I'm being more mindful of my chicken consumption. While poultry has a lot of benefits to it, it has more omega-6 than omega-3. So buying more seafood and more red meat. But yeah, the olive oil thing was cool. In general, like I said, I'm not a huge proponent of diligently tracking macros forever. I think that it's an important tool when you're first starting out, especially trying to eat lower carb from standard American diet, because buddy, it is a huge difference. I mean, even for me, transitioning from paleo to a lower carb to keto, it was a struggle. I was like, I didn't realize like the things that, but I also I also realized, because I'm active and because I can eat a lot of vegetables and it's not going to kick me. I can eat cabbage and Brussels sprouts and broccoli and kale and bok choy and even like delicata squash or cauliflower and zucchini and blueberries, and like I can eat vegetables, even some carrots. I cook with onion. Like those things aren't kicking me out of ketosis, and I feel good when I eat them. So I feel like the one downfall to tracking is that sometimes people get like they start vilifying or fearing real foods, and I think that that's a dangerous place to be, because a lot, like, yeah, of course, like, all vegetables have some sort of carb content. Doesn't mean they're bad. I was messaging with Leanne Vogel of Healthful Pursuit, and I think we're going to have a chat about this soon, but I find that there is a lot of people are still really buying into diet culture. And the dangerous thing about diet culture, especially under the guise of healthy lifestyle, because like you're telling yourself, it's my healthy lifestyle, but then you're posting memes on how, sugar is sugar is sugar is sugar. Like I saw this the other day on someone's feed. It was like pictures of vegetables, fruit, candy. It was kind of like saying, like, it doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's sugar, like sweet potato or a chocolate bar, sugar is sugar. And I'm like, ew, no, that's not how it works. And it's absolutely not. I mean, the fiber content in vegetables, the micronutrients in vegetables are absolutely going to impact how your body digests and uses that fuel. Like, yes, will the minimal amount of carbs in some plant matter be turned into glucose in your body? Yes, but you're going to get a lot of micronutrients from that. If you eat that with enough fat, it's not going to spike your blood sugar. This fat's going to slow the digestion. And spoiler alert, even if you're on a 0 carb diet, your body will break down protein to turn it into glucose. Our body needs glucose. Like, it's about not over consuming. Like, doesn't matter if if you only eat steak, like if you're carnivore, your body will break down protein and turn it into glucose because it needs it, like, for functions. So giving your body a measure of glucose through real food like vegetables isn't going to hurt you. I mean, it's obviously about knowing your blood sugar regulation. Like, if you're diabetic, you have to be more careful about that stuff. But for most people who are doing low carb or keto for health, just overall health, blood sugar, like, I just want to be stable energy, mental clarity, weight loss, being in that state where you're vilifying real foods, and like really focusing on macros over nutrition. It's just, like I said, it's diet culture, because it's just for what? Like, the only thing you're going to benefit from doing like those, eating that way, is weight loss. But being lean isn't the end all, and does not equate to being healthy. So, you can lose weight, but then have high triglycerides or high inflammatory markers, or be deficient in vitamin D and magnesium, So I think that it's not sustainable. And that's the thing with diet culture. It's not sustainable, because whatever you do, even if you lose a ton of weight, it's going to catch up to you in terms of chronic symptoms because of the malnutrition. So when you're focusing on eating in a way that you're honoring your body, that you feel good, that you're meeting all your nutritional needs, that's when it's really a lifestyle. Anyway, there's a lot of diet culture, I feel like, ingrained in keto. Like, ooh, look how little I can eat. Look how long I can go without eating. Look how, it's like, isn't the point to eat lots of really delicious food that's good for you and still feel good and see results? Not to, like, I was doing some research on my thyroid results recently. And one of the issues that I had with my thyroid, or the only issue really, is that I had low T3. Like, my body, TSH is fine, T4 is fine, but from T4 it does not convert to T3. It goes to reverse T3, and reverse T3 blocks regular free T3. And T3 is what, like, gets your metabolism going, creates energy. So having high reverse T3 and low free T3 makes it harder to lose weight and have energy. It causes, like, and all that stuff. And I was reading a study on the NCIBH, website, that what causes that is dieting, like calorie restriction, like doing too many diets, which I did my whole life. I used to starve myself and do these, like, crazy, I did Weight Watchers and South Beach diet, and a lifetime of yo-yo dieting. And that's where it got me. And so now I'm working to reverse that. But over restriction is not the key. It will down-regulate your metabolism, like it happened to me, and that's hard to reverse. And I get it. It's really hard. And it's not like saying, like, and it's hard for me to swallow that pill too, because I used to overeat as well. So I would, like, undereat, overeat, and I kind of rode that roller coaster my whole life. I'm aware that overeating is a problem for people. And I'm not saying that you can eat whatever you want all the time, as much as you want, and be healthy, because I know that's not the truth either. But there has to be a way to talk about having goals without it turning into you're either over restricting, or if you talk about not overeating, you're talking about, like, being anorexic or disordered eating. Like, there has to be a happy medium, because there is, like, that's how life is. That's where most of us need to operate, in that happy, healthy medium. Like, and I sometimes I see a lot of my colleagues, and I understand that a lot of people have dealt with disordered eating, and it's a real problem. I know I suffered from it too. But then I see those messages, and I'm also like, but I also didn't end up unhealthy and overweight from, like, I overate as well. And I think it's all about, and I talk about this a lot in my book and in my blog, but being honest with yourself and like your intentions, because when you use food as a food reward system, and going back to, that's why diet culture doesn't work, because diet culture thrives on making you feel guilty about your food choices. And that was my whole life. I would overeat, and then I'd feel really guilty because that's bad, and I was a bad person for doing that. And then I would punish myself, and I would over restrict. And then I would do that until I couldn't anymore, until I was cranky and fatigued and about to pass the fuck out and miserable. And then I would binge again. And then it was a vicious cycle of, then I would be punish myself again. And it was over and over. And that's how I ended up with my thyroid out of whack and my metabolism downregulated, which makes it harder overall to lose weight. And I think a lot of people are there. I know a lot of women who feel like even people on keto, like it's not a magic pill for everyone. Like some people do keto and they feel great, but they don't see weight loss results, and they feel like, oh, I'm failing. It's not. It's that your body's kind of jacked up from what we used to do to it. So we have to like nourish it. And I think that there's more and more studies coming out that say, and that are proving that while calories have their role in weight loss, way more important than calories is food quality. So I think that if you get to a place where your priority is food quality, where you're regulating your blood sugar, whatever that looks like for you, if that includes starches, or if that includes, if that includes a low carb keto, like super low carb, that's fine. Whatever works for you in terms of blood sugar regulation. And I think getting enough sleep, hydrating, making sure your mineral balance is on par. I think most people need to be supplementing with magnesium and or vitamin D. Making sure your omega-3 ratios are fine, like really focusing on like the quality of like, you're getting enough seafood in your life. Are you eating seaweed or, kelp? Those kind of things that we need, that I feel like are easy to overlook. I don't know, like focus on those kind of things first, and then, the weight loss can follow. The concept of calories in, calories out affects how we approach food in this diet culture. Not approach food as delicious ways to nourish ourselves. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's so ingrained in me, and people in this health space, still push that a lot. And that's another thing. That's why I'm going back to like, the really big emphasis on macros in keto kind of also pushes the calories in, calories out. Not everyone, but a lot of people in the keto space really talk about calories a lot and say, well, if you restrict your calories, your body's just going to eat your stored body fat for fuel. And while that can work for some people and it works well and they get rapid weight loss, your stored body fat's not going to have the same nutritional value as dietary fat that you eat, that you need, because like vitamins A, D, K, omega-3, omega-6, like your body fat doesn't have the same nutrition. I recently, and I told my doctor, and she didn't mention weight loss, but I was like, just so you know, like I work out, I eat really healthy. I don't think I overeat anymore. I think I'm eating for my body. I listen to my body. But it's just not changing. Like my body right now is like, I'll get toned and stuff like that. But as far as, I don't know, I feel like it's been a while. And when we looked at my lab, she's like, well, you have some stuff going on here, so it's going to be hard for your body to work the way it should. And I think sometimes a lot of us are there and we don't know it, so we're trying to push through, and then you start eating less, and that's just going to make the problem worse. Sometimes, and that goes back to diet culture. In diet culture, it's go harder, go stronger, work out more, eat less. If it doesn't work, you're doing something wrong. You need less carbs. You need to go run. You need to work out fasted. You need to intermittent fast, because, oh my gosh, that's why you're not losing any weight. And sometimes it's like, sometimes that's not the answer. Sometimes that's not the answer for everybody. Like, calm down. For some people, that's going to affect their thyroid, especially women, and it's going to downregulate your metabolism. It's going to put your body in like a state of, stress. So I've been thinking a lot about that, because I love the benefits of a low carb, real food diet. I love the blood sugar regulation. I love the mental clarity. It's helped me balance my hormones. I mean, I had crazy estrogen dominance before I went keto. And my body composition has really changed. I mean, I've leaned out in certain places, I've gained muscle, and I feel so good, but I am not dogmatic about it. Like, I know sometimes I eat more carbs, way more than people on keto would. Sometimes I eat super little carbs. So anyways, not saying like overeating. It's not about, and like I said, it's like that balance. How can we have a conversation about, hey, don't binge eat and overeat, and it's going to mess up your hunger signals and your leptin and your blood sugar regulation, but at the same time, don't be a psycho and starve yourself, because that doesn't work. I mean, it might for a little while, but it's not sustainable. And this is like, so my mom used to have this saying, and she not used to, she's still around. She says it all the time still. She's like, time's going to pass anyway, right? Like, it's true. We can't stop time. Days, weeks, years, they pass by no matter what we're doing. So if you are working towards something, doesn't matter how slow, if you're working towards something consistently and time just passes by, what you start noticing is that, like, if you could do the same thing, or at least you stay true to yourself or your goals for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, like, you're going to see the result, like at the end of the 4 years. So this is a good example. I had a friend in Hawaii, my neighbor. She was really super awesome at working out. She was really like, it's funny because I had the food down part and she had the workout down part. And so like I learned to work out with her, and I got her doing Whole30s, and she tried keto. But over the course of 3 years, my slow weight loss was like, but I kept going. And Kristen, who, she didn't even have like a ton of weight to lose. I in my eyes, she was like a really fit person, but she wanted to lose like 10 pounds. She had lost and gained those 10 pounds over and over again in the 3 years that I knew her. She would lose them, she'd gain them. She'd lose them, she'd gain them. She'd lose them, she'd gain them. She did a Whole30, she would gain it back because like she wouldn't do her reintroductions. Or she tried keto, but then she would, like she wasn't consistent. And so over the course of 3 years, 2 women, completely different even goals really, but one thing we had in common was we were working out, and we'd always work out together and all that. And I remember one time we were walking, and this was right before we both left Hawaii, and she was like, man, I'm so proud of you. She's like, I like whenever we did a Whole30 together, I lost like no weight, and she lost like 11 pounds. And I remember like, and I know it's not the point of a Whole30, but she was excited about it. And I was like, yeah, like good for you. I don't lose any weight because I've done like 6. But she was like, before we left Hawaii, she's like, man, I've seen you stick to your guns, and slowly you've been reaching your goals. And I've been over here like crashed, kind of like she's still running the hamster wheel, because she would go into things with a diet mentality. Even her Whole30 was like, she would weigh herself. She didn't follow the rules because she was so focused on that. And I think that's kind of why I got to that point where I stopped trying to like self-sabotage myself with quick, results. And I just realized like when it truly becomes a lifestyle, it becomes, I don't know, it's so much easier just to live your life and feel good. And then the rest will follow, as they say. So yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of people are still, like I said, diet culture disguised as a healthy lifestyle is even more dangerous. And I think that happens a lot in keto, unsustainable things. Like if you're falling off the wagon and instantly over a weekend and you come back and you're like, oh, I gained 6 pounds, which is, by the way, water weight, like that's not a lifestyle. That's not a lifestyle. Then you're obviously doing something that you can't sustain. Anyways, no wagon, burn the fucking wagon. Another live we can talk about female hormone balance on keto. After turning keto, I was like, what PMS? What cramping? It was like seeing unicorns, and it's magical and the body hits balance. Yeah, so for a lot of people, that can work out. If for a lot of women, I think that on keto, it's great insulin resistance. So let me put it this way. Let's go back to insulin, because this is why it affects. This is why keto is so good for women who have estrogen dominance, or who tend to be on the higher hormone side. In my experience, if a woman comes into keto with low estrogen or like low hormone function, it might not always be ideal. But when you're coming in with high, which most of us are, most people have an excess of like estrogen in the body, because everything in our, beauty products, plastic, like phytoestrogens in our environment are everywhere. But so insulin is a big, like insulin resistance and estrogen dominance, like for some reason, I forget why now, honestly. I think I have it in my book, but they go hand in hand. And I think most of it is because our liver, which obviously, like our liver, which processes and it stores the glycogen and, the glucose and turns it into glycogen and stores it. Our liver and our gut process out excess sex hormones. And when our liver is overburdened with too much insulin, from insulin resistance, it can't process out the excess sex hormones in our system. And I think that's why keto is so good for estrogen dominance, because when you give your liver a break from all the insulin, it's like, all right, check, we can work on this estrogen now, and it gets it out of the way. I agree. I used to have really painful cramps, and I also had like really long periods. They were like 8 or 9 days and like so heavy, and then they turned to like 4 days and regular. And that's as my hormones went balancing out. But I think that's, then people go too far and they drop their hormones too low. I think when there's too much calorie restriction, and a lack in micronutrients, and then that's when people get amenorrhea. So that's not good either. Like, I know periods are a pain in the ass, but we need them, and you need to get them monthly if you're a woman of reproductive age. So if you're to that point where you're starting to skip periods, or they're starting to like disappear, that's not good either. So amenorrhea is not good, but you also, of course, don't want like your period to be this like thing that knocks you off your feet every month. It is a magical place when your body hits balance, for sure. What's really another thing so when the body's under chronic stress, because our central nervous system, the pituitary and the hypothalamus, they kind of tell the body when our blood sugar goes too high or too low, and then it tells the adrenals, and the adrenals release epinephrine and cortisol, and then that gets the pancreas go either releasing glucagon, right, to use up the stored glucose and body fat, or insulin. And I think what happens to a lot of people, because there is that like epinephrine cortisol response involved in like the fat adapted thing and like burning fat for fuel, I think for some people, if they go too low carb or they're not eating enough or enough micronutrients, because you need micronutrients to sustain all these hormones, right? That's when people when your cortisol is firing too much, your body will start borrowing from your sex hormones to feed into that fight or flight response, and that's called the pregnenolone steal. So your body kind of like siphons, and this is super dumbed down, obviously, because I don't understand the super science explanation, but from what I've read, it's when your body is stealing from your sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone and all that, to feed the fight or flight response, because your body's always going to prioritize the fight or flight response, right? Because it's like survival. And that can cause a lot of issues too, and that can also cause like low or unbalanced hormones. So you have to be careful with that. Another thing I think about sometimes is, a lot of things that I think worked for our ancestors, like fasting, and aren't always ideal in modern day society due to the high stress levels of our lives. My doctor was talking about this, and I've told you how much I love my doctor, that she loves to implement fasting to help people with blood sugar issues. But what she has a problem is, while her clients are fasting, they look great. Their blood sugar levels are great. But the minute they reintroduce food, after like a day or two, their blood sugar's out of whack again. And her theory is because they're too stressed out. They're like working crazy hours. They're in traffic. Like, DC living is super fast paced. And she can't get them to get the long-term benefits of fasting because of the nature of their stressful lives. And even in the complete guide to fasting, I mean, Jimmy mentioned how he tried to fast when he traveled, and because of the stress, it didn't work for him. And Rob Wolf has a little excerpt in there saying how like it is a stressor on your body, so you have to make sure that nothing else is going on that's stressing you out when you're fasting. which is probably why I haven't done a successful. I've only done like one 24-hour fast, and I was sick, so I was in bed, so it doesn't really count. But that's like when it, like, that's I think why it worked, because I was legit in bed sleeping and I wasn't thinking about anything else. Like my normal, like wired, I'm not super uptight. I get stressed out easily. Self can't handle that. My body would be like, because when your body's in fight or flight, what it does is that, again, central nervous system, adrenals, cortisol, epinephrine, and your body legit dumps energy into the bloodstream. Like any stored liver glycogen, the muscle glycogen. So it turns the glycogen back into glucose and then back into the bloodstream. And then that happens in the liver first. And then it goes into your muscles and it turns the stored glycogen back into glucose. But the muscle glucose that turns into it doesn't get used. It doesn't go into the bloodstream. It just stays in your muscles. That's why replenishing your muscle glycogen can be like a thing on keto, and it's not going to like wreck your ketosis. And then of course, lastly, it starts turning adipose tissue into fat, like fat for fuel. And that's what turns ketones. So that hormone that makes that happen is glucagon, which is like the antithesis of insulin, right? But that happens in our body. That's like our fight or flight being like, we need energy, and that's what happens. I think when you're fat adapted, your body turns, and I'm still trying to, I've been talking to several people and trying to understand when you're fat adapted, you're running on that glucagon cycle all the time, but are you still, but not with cortisol? Like, how does that become our main, metabolic process without it being stressful on the body? I'm trying to figure that out. But a lot of people don't know. It's still very new. A lot of these things are like, we don't know yet how it works. It just does. I don't know if fasting boosts your metabolism. Honestly, we were just discussing that it depends, like, especially like over restriction can downregulate, your thyroid function. I think that obviously I know fasting isn't about under eating. It's about eating in a certain window. So I think intermittent fasting can work for a lot of people. Like I intermittent fast, but I just do like 16 hours no eating, and then in an 8-hour window. But in that 8-hour window, I eat enough. So as long as I think you're fasting, like there's a lot of benefits of fasting that can, like the autophagy and for blood sugar regulation and to reduce inflammation and all that jazz. However, I don't think it's for everyone. And we were just discussing that if you're extremely stressed, I think it's not for you. Especially longer fasts, which I haven't really dabbled in yet. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know a yes or no for that question. But yeah, all right, I'm going to go now. Good talk. But yeah, I'm going to see if I can get Leanne on here and we'll do a joint live, and maybe we can tackle some of that dogma, that diet talk that's kind of infiltrating the keto space. It worries me a little bit. I see a lot of people out there ending up with like hair loss and skin rashes and like wrecked hormones and I think long-term effects of under eating or over restricting and not eating enough micronutrients. And it's sad because something that can be so good and so beneficial is so easily perverted into something that I think causes more harm than good. So anyway, that is all. Happy Sunday, everyone. I hope you have a really good day. Tomorrow's Monday and back to the grind. Yeah, I think it's like in the 50s today, so I might go outside. Bye.